Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and I own two drones. I have a Mavic Mini and a Mavic Air, both from DJI. I love how portable these things are. In fact, this bag here is for my Mavic Air, and this is for my Mavic Mini. Super portable, and everything I need to fly these drones fits in these bags, including the drones themselves, which is amazing. And I really enjoy traveling with these things because they're so easy to travel with. Prior to these two, I had a Phantom, which is much, much larger. It was like a backpack versus a little carry-on bag here. So I am quite pleased with the portability. And what I wanted to do today is just kind of talk about the differences between these two drones, because I know if you are in the market for a drone and are a casual user like myself, you're probably considering these two devices here. And I wanted to give you an idea as to what you can expect because they do have a very big price difference. This one's about $400 less than this one, and there are a lot of things you give up by going for the lower price tag, but if you're looking for some basic transportation, the Mavic Mini is a pretty good deal, and we're going to, again, step through some of those differences here in just a second. Now, I do want to let you know, in the interest of full disclosure, that I bought the Mavic Air here with my own funds. However, the Mavic Mini came in free of charge through the Amazon Vine program. However, all the opinions you're about to hear are my own. Nobody is paying for this video, nor is anyone reviewing it or approving it before it gets uploaded. All right, so let's dive into this now and see how these things differ. Now, as I mentioned, there's a pretty big price difference between these two. The Mini here starts at $399, the Air starts at $799. And to be honest, if you're just looking for a flying camera, the Mini might be the one to get because it delivers a super stable shot. It's got this great gimbal on here. For the most part, if you're just posting to social media and maybe sending some videos to your friends with a smartphone or something, you will be hard-pressed to tell the difference between footage out of this camera versus the Air. They'll look very similar. Both are incredibly stable in the air. In fact, it's like having a tripod up in the air with you. As you can see here, we took some shots with the Mini that just look fantastic and just super stable. And I was really, really pleased with what it can do for such a low price. You're able to adjust the position of the camera here on the gimbal, on the Mini, just like you can on the Air. You get a lot of the same functionality if you're doing mostly manual control. The maximum resolution, though, of the Mini is a little bit less than the Air. This maxes out at 2.7K for video on its sensor. This Air here will do 4K. And so if you are looking to do maybe a little bit more of an involved production where resolution is important, there's obviously a big difference between 4K and 2.7K. However, at the top resolution, both of these drones only do 30 frames per second. And I have found over the years that I prefer shooting drone footage at 60 frames per second. And in order to do that with these two drones, you need to bring the resolution down to 1080p. And my preference is I much rather have smoother footage versus higher resolution footage. And both of these can essentially deliver the same performance at 1080p 60. They both look great, super smooth, and very, very pleased, especially given what I'm able to get out of this lower priced version. Now, one shooting mode that the Air has that the Mini lacks is slow motion, and this is something that I use quite a bit on my Air. The Air will do 120 frames per second at 1080p, and when you play it back at a normal frame rate, you get these beautiful cinematic smooth shots, and I have just had a blast shooting in that mode. Because it's so easy to use, and just about everything that spits out of that mode looks great, even if your photography skills aren't. And that's one thing, again, that you do not get on the Mini. Another thing that I really like about the Air that's lacking on the Mini is the collision sensors that you'll get on the more expensive model here. And what these do is look both in front and behind, and if it sees something that it might be running into, it will either go over it or stop completely to prevent a collision. And it works really, really well. And I can tell you that I have not crashed this drone at all because it's actually gotten me out of a few instances where it might have hit something had it not had those sensors there. Even though it looks like the Mini here has sensors on it, it does not for forward or rear collision. So you're far more likely to run into something with this and maybe even run into somebody with it. So you need to be a lot more careful flying this drone versus the Air. because there isn't a lot here to prevent it from flying into something. It just doesn't look for it. It can't see it. So that's something to keep in mind, especially if you're an inexperienced pilot or you might have kids that might want to play with your drone. They are far more likely to crash into something with this versus this. Now, both of these drones can do some autonomous shots, but the Air has many more things that it can do versus the Mini. So now what they can both do are orbiting shots where you can have the drone focus on an object and then fly a circular pattern around it. That looks pretty cool on video. They also have some selfie modes where it can start with you in a lower altitude and then pull out and show the landscape that you might be standing on or whatever. Pretty cool stuff that you can do on both. But the Air really has significantly greater features in this area. What I really like with the Air is that you can paint an object on the ground and have it follow that object. So whether it's people or cars or whatever, you basically tell the drone what you want it to follow and it will do that. So it works pretty well. Sometimes it will lose track of what you're trying to keep track of in the shot, but generally it does a really good, sometimes creepy job of following things around. You can also do gesture controls on the Air that you can't do on the Mini. So you can do some really cool shots closer to the ground. Here's one of me walking with the Air on the slow motion mode, looking all cool, which I'm not normally. So there are some things that you'll be able to get out of the Air that are way more advanced than what you're going to get out of the Mini, and you have to decide whether or not those autonomous features are worth that much of an investment. If you want to see more about how some of those features work, I detailed them in my full review of the Air that I definitely suggest you check out, because it is pretty remarkable what this thing can do without any real intervention from the person on the ground. Now, there is a big difference in battery life between these two. The Mini here is staying aloft with my flights for about 30 minutes, and I'm only getting about 20 minutes or so on the Air. The actual flight time varies based on conditions, so if the drone is really working against the wind, for example, that might eat into battery life a bit. But in every flight, this one is staying up much longer than this one is. And if you're looking to stay aloft for a long period of time, the Mini is definitely the way to go, although the 20-ish minutes you'll get out of the Air here are also pretty adequate. Now, one thing that disappointed me about the Mini is that they have a gang charger that you can get, which is part of their Fly More combo. I've got one battery in the drone right now. And you would look at this thinking, oh, cool, you can actually charge 3 batteries at once and get a lot of flight time. But the reality is much different. This is just charging with standard USB amperages here. So you're looking at like 5 volts, 2 amps, what you would normally charge your iPad with. And it doesn't charge the batteries at the same time. It charges them one at a time very slowly. So if you eat through all 3 batteries, you won't be pulling one off the charger and get another half hour out of it. You really will need to wait for everything to get charged up. So that was a bit of a disappointment that they wouldn't provide a faster charger. I don't know if one even exists at the moment. So that is just one thing to be aware of if you are shopping for the Mini. It's nice to have all these batteries, but it'd be nice if I could have one fully charged when the other one is done or close to it. Now, the controllers are pretty much the same on both drones, although the Air has a few more buttons for a few of its extra features. They're super compact, though. They fit really nicely into the bags here. When you're ready to fly, you just fold down the arms and stick your smartphone in like so. Unfortunately, I have found I have to take my case off my iPhone in order to get the cable to stay seated in there. That's been the one annoyance I've had with it. But beyond that, I'm really happy with how it all functions. And you do, of course, need to have your phone connected there. The phone will connect up with a cable, so it's not a Bluetooth connection, and you'll get a nice video feed back from the drone as it's flying. The thumbsticks very smartly store inside of here, and you just take them out and screw them onto the controller. I believe my Air came with an extra pair of thumbsticks, and I don't think my Mini did. But of course, if you lose the thumbsticks, you can still fly around, but you'll lose a lot of the control. So you'll definitely want to check before you fold everything up to make sure those thumbsticks are secure in their little holding area there. And that's pretty much it. You do need to charge the controller, so you do that over USB. So what you do is unplug the data cable here and plug in a charging cable to get it charged up. But of course, you'll get far more flights out of the remote than you will out of a single drone battery. And that's it. And I really, again, like just how compact and portable it is. One other thing I should note on both of these, and actually this goes for any drone, because I had this happen to me a little while ago. If you have a really gusty, windy day, I would be very cautious about flying the Mini out in conditions like that, because the Mini can't angle itself down as sharply as some of the other drones can, and it's possible the wind can just blow it away. I had this happen with a non-DJI drone recently, and it was crazy because I was flying it back towards myself and it wasn't moving. It was just holding itself stationary against the wind, even though I was at like full throttle trying to get back. And a light drone like this is going to be a lot more susceptible to it than a slightly heavier one. But even the air here can get blown away on a really windy day. So be sure you're aware of your conditions, because even if it's beautiful and sunny out, if that wind is blowing, it's going to be an issue. In my particular case, the wind was blowing above the tree line, so everything was fine below the tree line, but above it, the wind was really roaring, and I almost lost a drone that day. So just keep that in mind with these lightweight drones. Wind is not your friend, but on a nice day, both will deliver some really nice performance. So now the big question is, what do you give up by going with the lower cost drone in the lineup here? Hopefully this video gave you a perspective from a casual user as to what you can expect. I don't think you're giving up all that much. The basics here are as good as the more expensive drones. So 1080p 60 video, looks great, super smooth, super stable. The flight controls are super stable on this one, just like they are on the Air. Overall, from the basics, this thing is surprisingly good compared to the more expensive model. But the Air has some things that I think might be important to people. The most important feature in my book here are the collision sensors, because these really work quite well and prevent a lot of accidents from happening, both to the drone and perhaps to people that are on the ground, and property too, for that matter. These things will just stop the drone dead in its tracks. Even if you are telling it to fly right into something, it won't do it. And I think that's a big difference between the two. And if you crash this a couple of times, you may as well have bought this with its collision sensors. So that's one thing to keep in the back of your mind here. The autonomy here is very good. So you saw some of the things we were talking about that are lacking here. If those kinds of things are important to you, the Air is probably the better choice. And of course, you get a higher resolution out of this, and the slow motion footage, which is something that I use quite a bit. So altogether, from my perspective, if money's not an object, I think the Air is still probably the one to get. But if you're just starting out and just want to see what you can do with the drone, I think starting here with the Mini is probably a great way to get going, and then you can see what features you might wish you wanted, and then look for something at the next tier that might deliver that for you. I have found now, because I think this is my 5th drone, that the DJI drones generally hold their value. So when you're ready to sell one a year or two later, you should get a good amount of money on that sale, and you can fund your next one after that. It gets a little addictive after a while. But again, I think starting here with the Mini is not sacrificing all that much. And again, the basics here are every bit as good here as they are here, but there are some things that I think are better on the Air overall. Hopefully this was helpful. This was one of my talkers where I just kind of tell you what I'm thinking. So I'd love to get your opinions below. And until next time, this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold level supporters, the 4 Guys with Quarters podcast, Tom Albrecht, Rick Vestudo, Chris Allegretta, and Kalyan Kumar. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/s.